Our first conclusion when it comes to the potential purpose of the pyramid energy is that they were used as the communication device. When Nikola Tesla built his Wardenclyffe Tower in the state of New York, that was 1899, 1900, 1901, and so on. He did a few experiments, and then he was writing in his diary. He said, I found the way to send unlimited quantities of energy, thousands of horsepowers, between the planets, regardless of their distance. And the frequency he was using was 28 kilohertz, the same that we measure on the top of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. You are completely right. In the Great Pyramid of Egypt, I did mention the value of number pi, 3.14, which is very important because officially that number was discovered roughly, value only with the ancient Greek mathematicians, 2,000 years after the rule of the pharaoh Cheops. They are telling us the pharaoh, they built it during their life. Okay, you take Pharaoh Khufu, Cheops, from the 4th dynasty. He ruled according to some 19 years, according to some 23 years. So, in order to build that pyramid in 20 years, you need to install one block every minute. So imagine, design, cut, transport, install every minute. And you know what? Every block of the Great Pyramid of Egypt is of different size. They said, you don't attack the forces of dark, but you lit your candle. You bring the light to the world. And once you have many, many, many lights, the darkness disappears. So what we need to do, we need to become free. We need to bring our own freedom and affect people around us. Once many people grow their consciousness, that will be the way. It's not the violence. It is the rise of the consciousness.
So welcome everyone. Today we have another interview, this time with Dr. Sam Osmanagich, who is known for discovering the largest pyramids on Earth, also known as Bosnian Pyramids. So, unfortunately, mainstream archaeological community is kind of skeptical. They say that these are not man-made structures, these are natural formations. And you're gonna hear Dr. Sam saying something completely different and showing you some of his evidence proving that these are real pyramids. So in this episode of True Theory Podcast, we focused on basically what is the true history of this planet. Because the more you start researching things, the more you learn that many things that are considered facts in history regarding, for example, our civilization, our Homo sapiens, and some of these sites like pyramids in Egypt or Bosnia, etc., you will learn that most of the stuff that is considered truth in mainstream community is probably a BS. And this is what we are talking about in this interview. So, what is the purpose of the pyramids? Because it turns out that there are thousands of pyramids all around the world, and it looks like many cultures built these structures, and they are not just as a nice kind of sites, they have a very specific purpose. And, looks like the purpose is very much esoteric. So this is what we're going to talk about in this interview. I'm super excited about this interview because it's just really mind-blowing. The knowledge, the depth that Dr. Sam has really blows my mind, and I'm not surprised why he's the guy who discovered the largest pyramids on Earth. You know, he really investigated these things from so many different angles, and he kind of probably deserved to become one of those people that discovered one of the most interesting megalithic sites on Earth. So we are also talking about the true history of Homo sapiens. You know, are we basically just a byproduct of evolution, as the mainstream believes, or there is something completely different going on? So that's what we're going to hear about in this interview. So if you are someone who is interested in mysteries, ancient history, and wants to know more about these incredible sites and megalithic structures and learn some perhaps more real archaeology and history of this planet, you're probably going to enjoy this interview. So before we're going to get into the interview, I just want to make some quick announcements. So one thing that I want to ask everyone who is listening or watching my content is that if you are enjoying my shows, my videos, my podcasts, please consider just giving a little comment maybe on YouTube or somewhere else, or if you're listening to audio version, perhaps you could rate the podcast or give it a like. You know, it's kind of seems like a silly little thing, but for me this means a lot, because for you it might take literally 10-20 seconds to do it, but for me, you know, when I get feedback and I see that you guys are actually paying attention and listening and enjoying it, that kind of motivates me to work harder and bring you more interesting content and things like that. So, you know, this is really important. Please, if you can, just do it. Maybe if not under this episode, somewhere else. So please, please, please just comment, like, share, right? This is really important. Or give a rating. Another thing about it is that the more people do these types of things, the more these algorithms are actually promoting the content. So that means that more people can find out about these episodes, which is great. And as you know, sometimes these views are not really big. So that helps a lot as well. Thank you. And also, I just want to say, if you don't know, you might know, but like, go to truetheory.com/support and support my campaign, because it's going so slowly. Most people don't care. Maybe you are one of those that cares, but this is really important. So go to truetheory.com/support. Check out what's going on there. I created this campaign and showed how I've been targeted and censored, and how it led to a very dangerous situation where my brand basically is, in a very challenging position at the moment. And to keep moving forward, to survive, we need some of your help. So please have a look at truetheory.com/support. Support the campaign if you can. Share it. Let everyone know about it. This is really important for me and for the future of this channel and this work. Thank you to everyone who already supported our campaign and who is supporting my work. And also, you can go to patreon.com/truetheory and become a subscriber on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. You will get some exclusive stuff like guided meditation or some extra episodes and videos that are not published anywhere else. So patreon.com/truetheory. Check it out. And now, enough of me talking. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Sam Osmanagich. Okay, this is Mike Sigula from TrueTheory.com, and this is TrueTheory Podcast. And my guest today is Dr. Sam Osmanagic, who is a scientist, researcher, author, and businessman known for his work on megalithic and pyramid sites. He discovered the Bosnian Valley of Pyramids, comprising 6 colossal structures and an extensive underground tunnel network near Visoko in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Serving as a principal investigator since 2005, he founded the NGO Archaeological Park, Bosnian Pyramids of the Sun Foundation. Dr. Osmanagic holds a Ph.D. in Mayan pyramids and has held academic positions at American University in Bosnia and Herzegovina. He has received honors from various academies and institutions, authored 20 books on pyramids and ancient civilizations, and received awards for his research, including the United States Congressional Certificate of Recognition and the Amelia B. Edwards Award. His work redefines pyramids as energy amplifiers used for various purposes, including cosmic communication and self-healing. So, Dr. Osmanagic, welcome to the show.
Hello, Mike. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the nice introduction.
No, thank you for joining me. I hope I'm pronouncing your surname correctly, because I know in your language is going to be a little bit different. I'm actually Polish originally, so we also, Slavic, let's say, nations to some extent. So for me, I say Bosnia and Herzegovina, but I guess
it's a Bosnia, but that's
okay. Say a little bit different.
That's fine.
And Osmanagich or Osmanagich.
Osmanagich, yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because this is how I would read it. Yes. Osmanagich. All right, thanks. Thank you for that clarification. So, obviously we know a little bit about, you have very interesting perspective on our history, anthropology, Egyptology and pyramids and megalithic structures, and I would love to learn from you. But before we can start, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your story, how you became interested in these types of topics in the first place, and where this started and how was your journey until this point? If you could summarize it for us.
Gladly. I've been having diverse education. I got several faculty diplomas. One was in economics, 4 years. One was in political sciences, 4 years. Sociology, 2 years. My master's, my Ph.D. But my Ph.D. was in the history of civilizations, and I've traveled extensively to the 5 Central American countries: Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and Belize, where the Mayans were building a lot of pyramids and temples, and 97% of them are still in the jungles, covered by soil and vegetation. And then I've expanded my research to pyramids around the planet. Peru, 300 of them, Bolivia, US pyramids like 120 Cahokia pyramids, pyramids in Africa, 155 in Egypt, and I have researched and investigated all of them, 224 Nubian pyramids in northern Sudan, 104 pyramids on Canary Islands, 7 pyramids in Mauritius, 250 pyramids in China, pyramids in Indonesia like Gunung Padang, 28,000 years old, pyramids in Cambodia, Koh Ker Pyramid, Gympie Pyramid in Australia. In Europe, we have 3 Palencia pyramids. We have 43 of them on the island of Sicily, 1 on Sardinia, 16 in ancient Greek territories before ancient Greek civilization as we know it. So I have realized that the world of the past was the world of pyramids. During my travels and research, I was writing books, 20 of them, which they've been translated into 17 languages. And back in 2005, I first traveled to the Bosnian town of Visoko to visit the local museum. But what really caught my attention was this hill. Everybody called it a natural hill because it was covered by soil, forest, vegetation. But I could see the perfect geometry of four-sided pyramid, four triangular faces, four corners, and perfect orientation to the cardinal points, east, west, north, south. So, in the last 20 years, I started running this project. I established NGO for the archaeological and scientific research, and it has become the most active archaeological site in the world. So, on one hand, I've been having experience traveling through more than 100 countries around the planet. And this is, Mike, what I have concluded. Almost everything they teach us about the ancient history is wrong. The origin of man, civilizations, and pyramids. And pyramids, especially those in Egypt, they are not built as tombs for the pharaohs, because not a single pyramid in Egypt has a mummy. Mummy, or the pharaohs, they've been buried in the Valley of Kings, which is 600 kilometers to the south from the Giza Plateau, in Thebes, in Memphis, in Abydos, in Dendera, in their capitals, not in the pyramid. So my journey, with the Bosnian pyramids has given me so much proof that pyramids were not built for one dead body, but for the generation of living communities.
For generation of living communities. And okay, so with the Bosnian, let's maybe start with the Bosnian pyramids. So, you saw the hills and you thought this definitely doesn't seem like natural structure, landscape. Did you know anything about the tunnels already, or anything was excavated already?
When I first visited back in April of 2005, I had no knowledge about anything. Nobody talked about anything. Nobody wrote about anything there. People simply considered them natural hills because of the forest that was planted back in 1960s. The tunnels also, nobody mentioned the tunnels. So when I saw this shape, when I saw how huge they were, that year, 2005, I asked for the permission from the Ministry of Culture to do some preliminary research. And I got the permission as the individual, as the physical person. And everything I did, I was paying different companies to do the geological core drilling, archaeological trenches, lab analysis, everything I did. I was told anomaly, anomaly. So I wrote the book about the discovery of the first pyramids in Europe. At that time, I could notice two geometrically shaped hills, which I named the Bosnian Pyramids of the Sun and the Moon. And then in that book, I wrote that we were going to discover the tunnels, because through my experience, I knew that the tunnels always follow the pyramids. For example, at the Giza Plateau, three largest Egyptian pyramids, Khufu, Khafre, and Mycerinus, they have 4 levels of tunnels. And even though they are not open for the public, they are part of the whole complex. Why they are not open for the public? That's a different question, because they are more than 12,000 years old. They are older than the end of the last ice age, because there are proofs there. And then I knew that under every Chinese pyramids in the central province of Shanxi, there were tunnels. Under, let's say, Palenque pyramids in the Mexican state of Chiapas, there is a network of tunnels that run for kilometers. Under the major pyramids in the city of Teotihuacan in Mexico, under the Sun Pyramid and Pyramid of the Moon and Quetzalcoatl, there are the tunnels. Peru, the same thing. So based on that experience, I wrote that we were going to discover the tunnels. However, the obstacle from the cultural establishments were coming in great numbers. Back in 2005, I offered the cooperation to the Department of Archaeology at the University of Sarajevo. And they refused. They said, oh, we know every square meter of Bosnia. We don't need to go there, so there are no pyramids in Bosnia. I went to the National Museum, and they said, we never had pharaohs, therefore we cannot have pyramids. So I realized that I talked to the people who live in the 19th century. That was the reason I established non-profit foundation for the archaeological and scientific work. So we started digging in 2006 on 20 different spots on the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. So when we were removing approximately 1 meter of soil, we started discovering blocks, rectangular blocks and square blocks. And they were coming in several rows, the first layer, the second layer, and so on. So we took samples, sent them for the analysis to the Institute for Materials in Politecnico di Torino in Italy, in Geopolymer Institute in France, in Czech, Slovakia, Bosnia. Everybody told us that it was an artificially made concrete. So now imagine, you have the shape of the pyramid, you have 4 triangular faces, you have perfect orientation, and now below the soil, we are discovering artificially concrete. When it comes to concrete...
Did you take this... Sorry, just want to ask you, did you take the samples from different parts of the structure?
Course.
Or,
like I said, we opened 20 sections on all 4 sides at different, heights. So everywhere we were discovering the concrete, meaning the whole structure is artificial concrete. Now it's a huge structure. At first, back in 2005, I thought what was visible by the naked eye, I thought that the height was about 220 meters. However, lately we've done scanning by the LiDAR technology. This is, when you fly over the pyramids and you have a laser machine which send the laser rays through the forest between the leaves. So those rays, they are hitting the ground. So basically what you can do, you can remove the layer of greenery. You can remove the houses that are built on pyramids. And you can get the exact picture without that layer that hides the structure. And then we realize that those corners, they go all the way to the bottom of the valley. So the real height of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun is 368 meters. The Great Pyramid of Egypt, or Khufu, or Cheops Pyramid, is 147.6. So this is 2 times higher. And when it comes to the volume, it's more than 10 times bigger. So in the case of the Great Pyramid of Egypt, you have 6 million tons of materials. Bosnian, you have tens of millions of tons of the best quality concrete. How do we know that it is best quality? Because we have measured. The institutes, basically what they do, they measure 2 elements. The first one is hardness. Harder the concrete, it's more durable. Our concretes today are usually in the range from 10 to 60 megapascals. The best that we can do, and the best that we did, was when the Burj Khalifa was built. That's the highest skyscraper in the world in Dubai. And what they achieved was 115 megapascals. Well, the concrete from the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun is in the range from 74 to 155 megapascals. We cannot reach this hardness with our technology. And the second element is the water absorption. If water can get inside the concrete during the winter times, it freezes. And then, since ice has a tendency to expand, the concrete breaks. That's why we try to keep the water absorption very low. Up to 3% is our norm. And the concrete from the Bosnian pyramids, only 1% superior. So now we realize that we have shape, we have orientation, and we have artificially made construction materials. So we realize that yes, we do have the biggest pyramid on the planet. So now, the next element, since we have more than one, so far we have 6 confirmed pyramids, which we named the pyramids of the Sun, Moon, Dragon, Earth, Love, and the 6th pyramid. We realize that 3 pyramid tops, Sun, Moon, and Dragon, when connected, they form perfect equilateral triangle. The distance between the tops is 2,180 meters. So from Sun to the Moon, 2,180, from the Moon to Dragon, 2,180, from Dragon back to the Sun, 2,180. Now, equilateral triangle is element of sacred geometry. I have noticed that around the world, in the case of the pyramid sites and megalithic structures, the ancient builders were incorporating the elements of sacred geometry. Equilateral triangle is one of them. Hexagon is another one. Then we have number pi, 3.14. Like in case of the greatest pyramid in Egypt, when you take the length of the sides at the base, 231 meters, 2 lengths 462, divided by height 147, the result is 3.14. The next element is the golden section, or number phi, 1.618. The next element is Fibonacci spiral. So the ancients were incorporating those elements. Why? Because elements of sacred geometry means movement of the energy. In the case of the Bosnian Valley of the Pyramids, we have 2 golden section spirals. One of them starts with the top of the Sun Pyramid, which is the key structure. And then on this spiral, we have top of the Love Pyramid and 2 more pyramid hills. And the another one goes from the mouth of 2 rivers, River Fornica and River Bosna. And on this spiral, we have top of the Sun Pyramid, entrance to the tunnels, and the tumulus. Tumulus is in archaeology known as the conical artificial hill. And we have many of them built in, Great Britain, both in England and Ireland. We have them in France, we have them in Germany, we have them in Serbia, Bulgaria, Greece, Macedonia, everywhere. So they're always coming as a part of larger complexes. So now we realize that we have those elements of sacred geometry. And that was not all. Another very important feature is the astronomical properties. When we climb the top of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun and we follow the shadow of the Sun Pyramid during the most important day for the ancient people, and that was the summer solstice, June 21st, when the day light is the longest, when the sun rays are the strongest, and when our mother planet is the healthiest. So we follow the movement of the shadow of the Sun Pyramid. As the sun moves on horizon, the shadow moves, and just before the sunset, the shadow of the Sun Pyramid forms another pyramid, triangular shadow, next to the western slope of the Moon Pyramid. The top of the shadow, the same like the top of the Moon Pyramid, and the shadow touches the foundation of the Moon Pyramid. Very interesting, And then in the month of August, when we have the hottest days, this shadow completely covers the Moon Pyramid. So now we started seeing that many elements were incorporated in this complex.
Do we know anything about when they were built?
Yes. In the last 19 years, we have done 28 radiocarbon dating and 4 uranium thorium analysis in different labs. So some of them were in Germany, some of them were in Sweden, in the United States, in Ukraine, of course, before the war, and so on. So, for example, when we were removing the soil from the Sun Pyramid, we found those blocks, concrete blocks, exposed. and below the first layer of block and above the second one, like in the sandwich, we discovered the fossilized leaves. Why is that important? Because it can give us the date when the pyramid was built. How do we know? Because obviously somebody was pouring the concrete blocks, the first layer, the second layer, the third layer. The wind was blowing, bringing those leaves, and then they placed the final layer. Those leaves are organic material. We sent them for the radiocarbon dating, and the age was 29,200 years, plus minus 400 years. And this is so-called radiocarbon date. In order to get the calibrated date, or calendar age, we added approximately 14%. So the precise age of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun is 33,600 years. So now it changes everything. You know, they teach us in the schools that everything started 5,000-6,000 years back with the Sumerians and Babylon and Akkad, Assyria, Hittite, ancient Egypt, ancient India, ancient China, which is not correct. Because it's obvious to me that with the new discoveries, we need to go much, much deeper in the past. For example, one site that was run by the mainstream scientist, Dr. Klaus Schmidt from Germany, he passed away a few years back, Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey. Officially, it is, when you go to non-scientific sites like Wikipedia, it is 11,600, but it is about 13,600. And when I spoke to Dr. Schmidt before he died, he told me 15 to 18,000 years. I already mentioned Gunung Padang Pyramid in Western Java in Indonesia, 28,000 years. When you take the age of the structures like Machu Picchu in eastern Peru, out of 4 civilizations, the first one was probably more than 50,000 years. When you take Teotihuacan in Mexico, the first pyramid, now Pyramid of the Sun is basically 3 pyramids, one inside the other, like Russian dolls. The first one is more than 12,000 years. So now, obviously, there is a need to change the narrative. You know, I was taught in the school that there is an evolution when it comes to humans, that before we were primitive, caveman people, Stone Age people, and then with the time we were becoming more and more advanced. However, what I can see is that there are really peaks in the construction complexes in the distant past, and most probably the history of humanity is not the evolution, but the cycle after cycle after cycle. And it seems to me that in the last 100,000 years, there were at least 5 civilization cycluses. And they would have an abrupt end. For example, 75,000 years back, there was a huge volcanic eruption in Indonesia, and the whole planet had consequences. We could not see the sky for hundreds of years. 99% of humanity were wiped off from the face of the planet. 54,000, there was another global catastrophe, but it looked like it was some type of the chemical warfare. 34,000 years, another one. Most probably we had such a strong solar flares that they were burning the face of the planet 18,500 and 12,000 years back. So these were the cycluses. Of course, the mainstream archaeologists and historians do not accept this now, but eventually they will.
Can you tell me what is like the evidence for the chemical warfare? You mentioned one of these cycles that ended with this.
Well, 54,000 years ago, some people are saying that was the first phase of Atlantis, but they were not the only civilization. Of course, it seems that there are some others like Lemuria between Africa and India, Motherland Mu between Japan and the South America, Og in Peru, maybe another one in what's today Gobi Desert. So, it seems that there was some type of the global tension. Of course, the Indus Valley, Mohenjo-Daro. So it
I'm
seems that
just
there was some
curious,
type of the technological warfare.
but like, what's the remains now? How do we know this happened
Well,
50 something thousand years
Mohenjo-Daro, if
ago?
you go there, you will see that very extremely high temperature was used. It was some type either thermal nuclear power, or or something so strong that extremely high temperatures were formed, and in a very violent way, the civilization was stopped. And I know that mainstream historians try to diminish the age. They are talking about 5,000-6,000, but it was much, much older. And generally, they want to bring everything back to the Neolithic times. However, it is very obvious to me that things were happening much before that. Even Egyptian pyramids, officially the story is that they are 4,500 years old. For example, the Great Pyramid, the Pharaoh Khufu, that belonged to the 4th dynasty, he ruled 4,550 years. However, when you enter the pyramid, you find a beautiful corridor with the megalithic blocks from Aswan, chambers from the granite blocks from Aswan. In Khufu, the biggest one is 80 tons. In the Khafre pyramid, it's 220 tons. The question is, who moved 220 tons from Aswan, 869 kilometers to the north? And the bedtime stories that 100,000 slaves built those pyramids, they really sound very funny to me. I mean, 4,500 years back, Egypt did not have 100,000 people total, not to mention 100,000 slaves. And why did I mention those pyramids and their age? What you could see on the Giza plateau, a lot of seashells that are coming from the Mediterranean. And the Giza is 180 kilometers to the south from the Mediterranean Sea. So obviously at one point in the time, the plateau was flooded. When was the last time? 12,000 years ago, with the end of the last ice age. When the water level rose, for example, the Pacific went up for 80 meters, Atlantic 120 meters. Why? Because the huge quantities of ice melted, and this water went to the world seas and oceans. So when El Hamnoun, 1200 years back, violently opened the Great Pyramid of Egypt, what he found in the lower section was sea salt and seashells, meaning those pyramids were there during that flood. So for sure, this pyramid is more than 12,000 years old. But now when I mention those ages, the next question is, well, who lived then? Because what they teach us in schools is that was the Paleolithic era, with the primitive Paleolithic man and the stone age technology, which is basically just the stones. Well, it seems for me that there were episodes on our planet, but at the same time, you did have inferior people and some superior civilizations. Maybe not big numbers of them, but they were present there. For example, you go to Malta, you can see all these huge temples, megalithic blocks, and the official explanation is, a Neolithic man, he was in agriculture, and then all of a sudden, 5,000 years back, they became excellent construction engineers, building so many temples, and then they disappeared, and it all went back to the agriculture. The same thing goes for Sardinia or Sicily or Easter Island and things like that. I wouldn't say so. Even today, you have, for example, you go to Amazon, you have very primitive Stone Age people in the jungles of Amazon. You go to Papua New Guinea, you have very primitive people. You go to New York, you have people with mobile phones. So, two different levels of civilizations coexist even today. I think it's possible that we had similar scenario thousands and thousands of years back. Somebody who was capable of building those huge structures wherever they could find in the vicinity, and they knew much, much more, because those constructions, both megalithic sites like Stonehenge, Avery stone circles, Karnak in France, thousands and thousands of menhirs and dolmens. And we have dolmens everywhere. We have them in Belgium, in Netherlands, in Denmark, in Sweden, in Norway. And pyramids, like I said in the beginning, we have everywhere. So they were not building them because they had nothing better to do. They had multi-purpose function. And besides the fact that they knew elements of sacred geometry, they knew astronomy, what we have proven in Bosnia by measuring is that they were actually energy amplifiers, and this is the expression you used at the very beginning. What does that mean? How can pyramid be energy amplifier? It's no doubt that the location for the pyramids was very important. Our biggest pyramid, the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, is located above iron ore, iron plate. Iron generates electromagnetic field. The pyramid pulls this field up, amplifying it. How do we know that? Because we have measured at the base and at the top. At the top, the strength of the signal is 50 times stronger. The second source of the energy, 21 meters below the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, we have underground water flow. Water moves, it releases negative ions. The pyramid amplifies the concentration of negative ions. Negative ions are very beneficial to us, but how do we know that it amplifies? Because we measure. We have instruments called air ion counters, and they measure the concentrations. Having measured the largest concentrations in the Bosnian pyramid tunnels in the world. I can come back to that later. The next element, there is another water flow 55 meters below the pyramid. Between the two, there is a charge. And there is a charge, there is a voltage. And there is a voltage, there is an electricity. The pyramid pulls this electricity. It goes through the 7 levels of tunnels. It's like a spiral, and goes to the very top of the pyramid, forming an energy beam, which is 28 kilohertz in frequency. It's electrical in nature. It is continuous because we measure it in the spring and the summer and the fall and the winter, day and night. And 5 teams who came at 5 different times from 5 different countries, bringing their own equipment, they got the same results. Team from Croatia, Serbia, Italy, Finland, and Germany. In science, when you have such, 5 teams getting the same results, it is called an international, independent scientific verification of the phenomenon. Which phenomenon? This energy being going through the top of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. We measured the top of other natural hills, nothing like that. Only the Sun Pyramid, the Moon Pyramid, the Tumulus in Vratnica, and one, conical hill in our beautiful park, Ravne 2. That hill we named the Bell Tower. Now, what is the direction of those energy beams? All these beams from the smaller structures, Moon and Tumulus and Bell Tower, those beams, they are moved towards the Sun Pyramid. And the Sun Pyramid shoot to the sky. But not at 90 degrees, really. In the morning, it's moved a little bit to the east. Why to the east? Well, our sun rises in the east. Noontime, south. Afternoon, southwest. Evening, west. So it seems that our planet communicates with the sun. And then we measure, using the drone, the strength of the signal on the top, at the ground, and then we were, lifting the drone for a few meters, flying it left and right and back and forth, so we covered a huge area. We realized that this beam has a radius of 4.5 meters at the top, and it expands to 20 meters, coming back to 4.5, 20, 4.5, 20. And as it moves away from the pyramid, the strength is getting bigger. It's stronger and stronger. Now, this phenomenon in science is called the scalar waves. The genius mind of Nikola Tesla measured those subtle energies 125 years ago in his lab in Colorado Springs and in his Wardenclyffe Tower in New York. And he concluded that scalar waves move quicker than the speed of light. Or to be more precise, that information within scalar field move quicker than the speed of light. Or even more precise, for the scalar waves, there is no time. If they are created in one part of the universe, they will be found in another part at the same time. So now, our first conclusion when it comes to the potential purpose of the pyramid energy is that they were used as the communication device.
Okay, interesting. So you think with the different planets or different ET races, perhaps in difference?
Well, it's rather obvious for me that somebody knew how to create very specific frequencies. When Nikola Tesla built his Wardenclyffe Tower in the state of New York, that was 1899, 1900, 1901, and so on. He did a few experiments, and then he was writing in his diary. He said, I found the way to send unlimited quantities of energy, thousands of horsepowers, between the planets, regardless of their distance. And the frequency he was using was 28 kilohertz, the same that we measure on the top of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. I concluded a long time ago that if you want to find the real purpose of pyramids, you cannot rely on archaeologists, historians, geologists. Nobody teaches them in the schools about the true purpose of pyramids. We needed really work of the real scientists, people with the scientific instruments, people who measure. Because if you can measure, you can scientifically prove that. That's the reason why we'll be bringing, physicists, quantum physicists, electrical engineers, sound engineers, telecommunication engineers, medical doctors, people with instruments. So for me, it's very possible that first potential purpose of pyramids was to communicate in really long distances. But then if our planet is point A, where is the point B? And point C and point D. And now you are getting the network and potential cosmic internet. And really, that would be most probably the first purpose of pyramids. The second one, if you want to continue.
Yeah.
The second one has something to do with what's the most precious to us, and that would be our health. Now, you mentioned that we discovered the tunnels. Now, in the last 19 years, we have discovered 7 entrances to underground prehistorical tunnels. We named them Ravne tunnels, Ravne 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the KTK tunnels. They are on different levels, on 2 different levels so far. I suspect there are maybe 3 to 7 different levels. So far, we have cleared 3.5 kilometers of existing net underground prehistorical tunnels. And I think that's just the beginning. Maybe there is even 100 kilometers. We have noticed that as you go through the tunnels, you breathe better and better. And this is not very logical. If you go, for example, to the coal mine, after 20, 30 meters, it's lack of oxygen. You have trouble breathing. That's why, they are, pushing the oxygen inside the coal mines. But in our case, you go deeper, you breathe better and better. People with the respiratory problems, people with asthma, bronchitis, and so on, they breathe so well. For example, they come for a week or 10 days, visiting the tunnels every day, 1 or 2 hours. They don't need inhalers, air pumps no more. Also, we have noticed that people will be going inside, for example, if they have high glucose in the blood, high sugar in the blood. They have a little device, they take a drop of blood and they measure sugar before the tunnels and after coming back from the tunnels. And the sugar, would drop 2, 3, 5 points. For example, you have 10.5, which is almost diabetes. After one visit, the sugar level dropped to 5.5, which is normal level. And then we started doing little studies. We had people who would have diabetes, 20 or 22. After 1 week, it would drop to the normal level. So obviously, visiting the tunnels helps you if you have sugar, respiratory problems, if you have a blood pressure, if you have tumors, if you have very serious diseases, even if you have mental problems. So, we always say our foundation is not in the healing business. We don't give any medical guarantees. What we do, 2 things. First, we film the testimonials from the people, we put them on YouTube. If it can help someone, great. And second, we measure. What we have measured, Mike, is the combination of 10 elements. And very quickly, the first 5 is the absence of all harmful radiations. Right now, you and I, we are exposed to the cosmic radiations. Why? Because we live on the surface of the planet. And those radiations, they attack our body. Some of them are harmful. Our body cells fight those enemies. In the tunnels, 25 meters below the ground, no harmful cosmic radiations, no enemies. The second one is the natural radioactivity. Sometimes we walk the streets and we are not even aware that on some places this radioactivity comes on the surface, attacking our body. So 24 hours a day, our body is being attacked by different radiations. Well, in the tunnels we use Geiger-Miller counters, and the values of the radiations are dozens of times lower than the minimum allowed. Number 3, geopathogenic radiations. That's underground water flows. It's neutralized. Number 4, the signal for the mobile phone. 3G, 4G, 5G, all bad. We talk on the phone for 15 minutes. It burns 150,000 of our brain cells. In the tunnels, no signal for the mobile phone. No signal for the Wi-Fi. No harmful radiation. So for the first time in our life, when you enter the tunnels under the Bosnian Pyramid, our body does not have enemies. Body cells can start doing their job. And what is their job? To fix the problems in our body. Somebody has high blood pressure, somebody has high sugar, somebody has tumors, somebody has cancer. Regeneration process. And the other 5 elements are the energy properties that we can also measure. Number 6, the best frequency of electromagnetic field, 28 kilohertz, that's the frequency of our planet. Number 7, the best frequency of ultrasound, 28 kilohertz, that's the frequency of the levitation. Number 8, extremely low frequency, ELF, of 7 0.83 Hz. In science, it is called the original Schumann resonance, which brings us back to the balance. Number 9, high level of orgone or life energy. There is instrument to measure it. And number 10, the highest concentration of negative ions, very beneficial. Students of the physiology and the medical faculties, they learn about 42 benefits of negative ions. And that's exactly what I mentioned. Sugar and blood pressure and, different pathologies. They help with the work of the organs and the liver and the heart and the pH and so on and so forth. So once you put those 10 elements together, those tunnels under the Pyramid Valley, they are the safest and the healthiest place on the planet. So now we are coming to the second purpose of pyramids, protection of our health. And you see how it all makes sense. When I said in the beginning, they were not built for the dead body, but they were built for the generations of living communities. A, communication, health. Number 3, water, the most important liquid. The water that we drink, the city water. Medical authorities are saying, it is safe, you can drink it, no viruses, bacteria, fungi. Yes. Why? Because it's been treated by the chloride. And the chloride is a poison. We drink poison all our life. In some countries, I just got back a couple of days ago from the UK, they add fluoride. Until 50 years back, the fluoride was exclusively poison for rats. Fluoride attacks our nerve system, our brain. Number 3, in our water, there are traces of heavy metals. Why? Because this water melts the metal from the metal pipes. Number 4, there are traces of plastic. Why? Because to our kitchens, it comes from the plastic, pipes. So water that we drink is, energetically dead. The water from the tunnels, of course, it is not treated. It has many important elements like magnesium, calcium, kali, and so on. It is energetically alive. When we sent it to the late Dr. Masaru Emoto 10 years ago to Japan, he would freeze the water, different samples of water. He froze our water and minus 20 degrees Celsius, and then he made a photograph through the electronic microscope, and he discovered that our water has hexagonal molecular structure. Hexagonal, the most powerful geometrical shape when it comes to the energies. The bees, when they make honey, how their homes look like, it's a hexagonal. And you could see beautiful crystal-like structure everywhere. So this water is energetically alive. It's a happy water. It vibrates high. And we are what we drink. So either you drink dead water or you drink water that is alive. So the purpose number 3, to improve the molecular structure of the water. And if you want me to continue, number 4, to improve the molecular structure of the food. We've done experiment with the seeds of beans. We had a bag with the seeds at our home, control group. One we put in the tunnels and one on the top of the pyramid. So those 2 were exposed to the pyramid energy. After 2 weeks, we planted them, and only 60% of the control group started growing. 100% of pyramid seeds started growing, and from May to beginning of September, that's the bean, we could see that the pyramid group would grow 3 times quicker, richer, healthier. So the pyramid energy affects our DNA of the plants, DNA of the animals, DNA of the humans. So it improves our food. Number 5, it improves our immunity. In the last 4 years, we had this terrible situation organized by the monsters in which they were trying to assure us that the solution is the vaccine. But then, after a couple of years, people realized that you can have vaccine or you don't have to have it, but everybody's going to get the virus and bacteria. And then the question is not the vaccine, but the immunity. And you've noticed, going to the tunnels, it raises your immunity. It clears your blood. It improves your, with a special instrument to measure auric field, which is refreshed much stronger after visiting the tunnels. It brings your chakras back to the balance. It adds energy in your cells. It reduces your stress. It develops your spiritual senses. So see how many practical things from telecommunication and the water and the health and the food and the immunity and spirituality, the pyramid energy affects. And now it all makes sense.
Thank you for sharing all that. I have one theory. I want to know what you think about it. So, someone mentioned to me that when they went to the Egyptian pyramids inside the tombs, this person was a little bit psychic. So let's say like their senses are open more than an average human being's senses. Straight away, they shut their eyes, started meditating, and boom, they see some entities, beings. So it seems like the properties of the pyramids would enhance their psychic abilities instantly, right? I'm someone who is sensitive to energies. I had something like a Kundalini awakening when, I'm feeling my auric field. So I feel these types of things sometimes when I go to, let's say there is a specific mountain, it has some of these properties like ley lines, etc. I feel straight away the difference. If I do like Qigong, these types of practices, I can feel it's enhanced and stuff like that, right? So this guy was proposing that maybe one of the purposes of the, Egyptian pyramids, probably it would be the same with Bosnian, was that if the person is a little bit psychic, let's say, like me or some of the other guys, and they would try to, maybe project their consciousness somewhere else or do some out-of-body experience or some of these higher states of consciousness in place like that, they could, do it 10 times better or 100 times better than somewhere else. So perhaps it was also a tool for someone, to project their mind into a different realities or, even plans, whatever. And it's interesting because I've been experimenting a lot with these things. And, I've done 7 years of plant medicine sessions. And for me, like when I was using psychedelics, they were working as amplifiers of my own abilities. So I could do some remote viewing, tap into past lives, all these things. And I got into a very interesting state of consciousness, which was like really advanced. From that level, I could see like everything simultaneously, everything in my life, everything on earth, all at once, right? And it was like the most interesting state I ever experienced, which was way different to any other psychedelic state or anything like that. And I only had it like 4 times or something over like 7 years. And I was always thinking how it happened, why I was able to get to that state only a couple of times, and what was the thing behind it. Was it like the types of psychedelics, the dosage, whatever? And then I noticed that actually every time it happened, I was on the mountain. I was like sitting on top of the mountain. If I would be doing psychedelics in my room or on the flat forest or somewhere else, even with bigger doses, I never got to that level. So it made me think that there is something about the energy of the mountain that amplifies my own ability, and I'm using psychedelics as a magnifying glass for my consciousness to get me into those states. So that made me think, if this guy said he was, in Egypt in the pyramids and he could straight away activate his abilities, maybe some of these people were using them for these types of purposes, to like do remote viewing or astral projection, astral travel, or maybe just like tap into a different part of the universe with their consciousness. What do you think?
Absolutely agree. We have a lot of visitors to the Bosnian pyramids. When I follow the trend, 2008, 10,000 people. 2018, 40,000. 2023, 195,000. So, tens of thousands of people. Among them, we have people who deal with the energy work, with the bioenergy and so on, who can, claim that they heal. And they say when they go to the tunnels, their abilities amplify 10 times. Talking about the Egyptian pyramids, absolutely right also. Even though going through those passageways there, it's kind of a little bit claustrophobic, they're rather low, and the oxygen level is rather low. But once you get inside, let's say, King's Chamber, there is a granite box. For some reason, they call them sarcophagus. It's not sarcophagus, but it's a granite box. Granite is very important because of the quartz crystal. And the whole chamber is granite, so a lot of quartz crystal. Quartz crystal amplifies the energy, and it transforms the energy. Every time I lay in that box, close the eyes, the first thing I see the universe. I see. So for me, there is no doubt that they would use that for the astral projections and maybe even teleportation, but that's another issue. For teleportation. Besides the technique, you need a very strong energy field, and you need some technology which is not there no more. But all other elements are there. But astral projections for sure. It's, being exposed to the pyramid energy. And in the pyramids, energy goes like this. It goes from the bottom of the pyramid, hitting 1/3 of the height, going to 2/3, coming back to 1/3, and completing the circle. Well, that King's Chamber is exactly on 2/3 of the height. It is exposed to the pyramid energy, which improves our abilities, among other things, our spiritual abilities. So I think what it does when you use those substances, probably the same thing. It simply removes the brakes of the physical body, so our soul or our consciousness or our spiritual part can do the job, can be free, and we can control it. So I think that's a very important part, and that's why I'm saying that pyramid energy, at least Bosnian pyramids, they affect our spiritual abilities. What are our spiritual abilities? I think we have, besides 5 physical senses, 30 spiritual senses. The first sense is to feel the energy. And then, once in the tunnels, you can very easily, feel the energies, your auric field, the auric field of other persons. The second one, seeing the energy. The third one, seeing the colors of auric field or chakras and so on. The next one, telepathy. It's also, our spiritual ability. The next one, telekinesis. The next one, teleportation, and so on. So I think those important abilities, we can improve or we can develop by visiting the pyramids. Of course, it's important that pyramids are still active. And I know that the Bosnian pyramids are active, maybe not like, the original times. Energy is weaker now, but it is measurable. So you see how I combine the scientific approach. Of course, many people talk about the energies in very, theoretical terms but, I'm a scientist. I like to measure. But so if I can measure electromagnetism, ultrasound, infrasound, orgone energy, negative, so you measure so many elements. Probably there are some more, but we don't know what to look for. We don't, even have scientific instruments to measure some other energies that are present. But what we can measure, that's, enough to convince many people that pyramids are energy machines.
Another interesting thing that I think when I was doing these experiments with psychedelics, etc., and mountains, and sometimes if I would do it on the solstice, I would have the most powerful experience, for example. So the exposure of the sun, it also has an effect. And there was some guy, his name was Roger Gilbertson. I don't know if you heard about him, but basically he noticed that there was a satellite that had an orbit which basically followed the orbit aligned with the sun constantly, right? So it could get the electricity for the power, etc., right? And when they looked at the orbit it created around the Earth, they found that many of the megalithic structures were exactly aligned with this orbit, right? So seems like a lot of megalithic structures have the biggest exposure to the sun. They are specifically aligned to have always the most sun activity, absorption or something, right? So this seems to actually make sense, that this was also done by design, right? They were specifically placed in places where there is the most sun exposure, right? Yeah.
This is great.
And
Yes.
another thing, so recently I was reading this article. It's funny because it's in mainstream news, and they said coincidentally the latitude of the Great Pyramid in Giza is actually almost identical to the speed of light per second, in meters per second, right? It's like 200 million something, right? And it's exactly almost to every digit. And I started reading what they say about it. They say this is coincidental because, first of all, the meters as measure units are probably used since 18th century, but meter is not just any unit. It actually is 1/10 of 10,000 meters is the distance from the equator to the North Pole, right? So it's a very rounded number. So 1/10,000th of that is the meter. So this is, it's not just any distance. It is a specific distance when you look at the ratio of the planet, right? So, maybe actually it is by design to have, exactly the speed of light in the construction of a pyramid. What do you think about that? Because the skeptics say there is just no way.
You are completely right. In the Great Pyramid of Egypt, I did mention the value of number pi, 3.14, which is very important because officially that number was discovered roughly, value only with the ancient Greek mathematicians, 2,000 years after the rule of the pharaoh Cheops. Of course, the pyramids was built. I think that Great Pyramid of Egypt is probably built between 30 and 40,000 years back. But number pi is there. Number phi, golden section and golden spiral is there.
Sorry. Yes. I want to ask you, but the pi is how it's presented. What ratio shows the pi? 3.13.
The length of the sides at the base is 231 meters. Two lengths, 231 plus 231, 462. The height, 147. So 462 divided by 147 equals 3.14. So that's number pi. Number phi. or golden section spiral. You start with the King Tut's underground chamber as the beginning point, and then on the line, on the spiral, you have all three pyramids. That's one. And the other one is inside the pyramid. On this line of the spiral, you have all three chambers there. So we can see that the golden section spiral is there. And then we can see also that the distance between our planet and the sun is incorporated in measurements. Our planet between our, distance between our planet and the moon is there. You mentioned the speed of light, and you are right. It has to do with the latitude, how much it is from the equator. So all those decimals, 299 and so on, basically they match the speed of light, 299,000 kilometers per second. These are not coincidences. Somebody knew exactly where to build the Great Pyramid of Egypt and what dimensions to use. So, another one, for example, Stonehenge. It is said it was built by the Neolithic man, blah, blah, blah. These are funny stories. But when you take the original design of Stonehenge, it had 30 vertical megaliths and 30 horizontal. 30 plus 30 is 60, and they form the circle. Circle has 360 degrees. 60 times 360 is 21,600. And then, when you take the latitude of the Stonehenge, it lays at 51 degrees, 10 minutes, and 42 seconds from the equator. So when you multiply those numbers, 51 times 10 times 42, the result is 21,340. So it is not 21,600. But when you add 10 decimals after the seconds, so 51 degrees, 10 minutes, 42 seconds, comma, 3,3,2,6,4,4,7,3,6. When you multiply those three numbers, the result is 21,600. What does that mean? First of all, they knew importance of this number, 21,006. So 216, 2 plus 1 plus 6, number 9. 9 is divine number, the most important number. Then, those people, they knew, they had the concept of a circle with the 360 degrees. That's the same concept we have today. And those people were excellent engineers of geodesy. They simply had to build Stonehenge exactly at that place, at that latitude. So, these are the things that show us the ingenuity of those builders.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just curious, like, if, let's say, we're not talking about sacred geometry now or some of these more advanced purposes, but, you did your research with the Bosnian pyramids, you spent all those years, you took the samples, sent it to all those labs, you did all the measurements, you published all that. And when I do some research on Bosnian pyramids on Google, I get results that this is not approved by the mainstream archaeological community, that this is pseudoscience and blah, blah, blah. How is that possible? Why do they ignore all that? What do you think?
Who controls the history? Not the small countries, not the non-profit NGOs, but elites. Why so important? Those who control the history control the present. When you go to the common website like Wikipedia, Google, Encyclopedia Britannica, Smithsonian, National Geographic, you very soon realize that 90% of the information are public information and they are common information, you can accept it. But 10% of the most delicate stuff, like astronomy, history, archaeology, politics, it's fully controlled. For example, when Wikipedia started, 15 years ago, it started as people's encyclopedia. Once it became prominent and very influential, then some other forces took over, like intelligence services. From the US, 3 of them, they have a great deal of control of it. 3 biggest intelligence agencies. The first one starts with the C, the second one with the F, and the third one with the N, CIA, FBI, NSA. But not only that, some others also. So for them, the Bosnian pyramids is something that should not be allowed to the history books because it takes us back for more than 30,000 years. If they do allow that, then all other discoveries would change the narrative of our history. And if people become aware that there were many cycluses of humanity, and not only with the Homo sapiens, people will start raising the questions. Who were they? How did they live? What was their spirituality? What did they know? How was their technology? And then once you realize that they were aware that we are not only the physical body, which is for one use only, but we are also soul, which is almost forever, and of course spirit, which is part of a divine. But if we are soul, if we can travel, if we have no limits, then we become free. So once people become free, then they don't care about those who want to instill fear in our lives. And who are they? Monsters who call themselves elites and who run the corporations, the media, the money printing organizations like Fed and the European Central Bank, who have all these politicians as their, pawns. So once people would become aware of our real past, then they would realize there is nothing to fear in this life. And the politicians and the corporate elites, they become irrelevant. So this project is much more than another archaeological discoveries. It's not the question whether archaeologists approve it or not, or geology. I mean, it's totally irrelevant. It is the significance of the project. This is interdisciplinary scientific projects. You take Egyptian pyramids. Egyptologists guard Egyptian pyramids very jealously. You cannot go there as a physicist or geophysicist to do energy measurements. You cannot. I've done a series of measurements on Red Pyramid, on Khafre pyramids. I was sending results. I was sharing with my colleagues. But I know a lot of Egyptologists and archaeologists. I was doing lectures at University of Cairo, at University of Ain Shams in Cairo, University of Alexandria, Library of Alexandria. So I shared the info with them. They said, we are not interested. Those pyramids are tombs. We don't care, about the energy properties. So that second level, limited. The one above, they control. So imagine that people realize that instead of being just a tourist attraction, Egyptian pyramids were energy machines who produce or who can produce clean, unlimited, and free energy that would affect our spiritual abilities, among other things. Then we would all become free. And we are the only pyramid project in the world that have for everyone free access. Anybody can come and work with us and research with us and do the analysis, and we share with everyone. So we are kind of a dangerous thing for them, you know. And that's why we will always stay pseudo-archaeological projects, pseudo-historical projects, pseudo-scientific projects, no matter how many analyses and testing and dating and energy measurements we produce. And I know, I remember from the very beginning, 2006, when we started excavation, and we discovered the first concrete blocks. I mean, they are regular, rectangular blocks of 8 tons, one on top of each other. You can see it is a structure. We had a big press conference at the pyramid, so we had people from Associated Press and Reuters and France Press and so on. And this lady, Associated Press journalist, she was from Bosnia, working for AP with the headquarters in New York. She was so excited, and she, took photos. She wrote an article, very positive. The first proofs of Bosnian pyramids have been uncovered. The next day, American Archaeological Society called the headquarters of AP in New York, asked them to remove the news and never to publish any other positive news. And this is what she admitted to me. And the French press, the same thing. So media is actually propaganda only, fully controlled.
I agree 100%. I had similar experiences with some of the articles I published about, let's say, COVID lab leak theory at the beginning as a possibility. I got fact check, and my content was removed, and later on it became a thing that actually many people started taking seriously and things like that. So, and I notice a lot of scientists, they don't really look into the topic properly. They just gonna repeat what everyone else repeats. So if it's like, this is pseudoscience, then we agree this is pseudoscience, right? So, I've seen like situations. I remember, for example, reading a book by, I forgot what's his name is, but the guy, the famous NASA scientist who died before, and he made a documentary. I'm just
about
but the
documentary
the
about
Cosmos, the Cosmos documentary. Who I forgot who was that, but basically.
So what was he claiming?
So the idea was like the crop circles are man-made, right? Hoax. But they would, if you study the crop circles, there's a lot of information about, right? A lot of the hundreds of them appear every year. They're so super complex. Many witnesses claim they appeared overnight, things like that. To make something so complex, you need, teams of people, probably helicopters to plan it and things like that. So it's impossible to debunk it like this. You can debunk maybe 1%, 10%, 5%, whatever, but he just never looked at everything. He just found that one piece of information that fitted his bias, then ignored everything else, didn't even know maybe about it. And and that's how they look at things. I sometimes meet some scientists, and I know something about the topic, and I see how they just repeat what everyone else repeats.
Well, I was investigating crop circles years back, and it was so obvious there is no way that you can bend those crops from inside, because they were bent from some force from inside, and they were not broken. And for years, it was very obvious that somebody is making them overnight, literally in a matter of seconds or minutes. And what the biggest propaganda machine in the UK did, which is called, by the way, BBC, what they did, they hired a few people and they asked them to bring some, wooden pieces, and then, they would bend them manually. And in the morning, they said, okay, look, this is obviously some group of people who go in those crop fields. This is what they do. And they were repeating it so many times on the TV in England and worldwide that it stuck in people's mind. Oh, crop circles, they were made by man. So this is propaganda. This is, what you do when you want to assure people of the falsified information. But when you go there, and of course there are people who are filming how they were made. There was a guy who was, for 10 years, he was going to places where crop circles might show up. He was having his camera. And then one night, 3 a.m., the middle of the, night, he finally made the beautiful movies showing some lights, circular lights. They showed up and they were, doing some busy stuff about the crops. In the matter of 20 seconds, this is how long they stayed there. They made a beautiful, very complicated, they call them crop circles, they're much more than that. In the morning, when the sun rose, whatever, 5, 6 o'clock, they could see the crop circle there. So we know that these are some lights, some intelligent
like a ball
lights.
of light comes and boom.
Yes, some intelligent lights. What are they? Are they extraterrestrial? Are they terrestrial? Are they interterrestrial? Are they interdimensional beings? I don't know. But it's some form of intelligence that send us messages. But then, because of the way how this, civilization is organized with those monsters on the top, they don't let people learn about those messages. And those messages, sometimes they are cosmic messages, they are climate messages, they are about endangered species messages, whales or dolphins. So there are beautiful messages that we can learn from. Instead, they are telling us, no, this is what people do. And it's like that everywhere. You gave a good example of, fact-checking people, the censorship. It's a shame how that young people start working as a journalist. They are offered, solid money, and directors and, editors, they have instructions what to do. During the COVID time, I remember the first year, 2020, I was saying, when it all started, that the first wave will last till May, which, it did. And they removed the content from my YouTube. I said the second wave is coming from September. It did happen. In September, I said 2021, we're going to have the third and the fourth wave. They removed that one by the fact-checking. It's still removed. And of course, the next year, everybody was talking about the third wave of the COVID and the fourth. And then doctors started saying, okay, next year we're going to have the fifth wave, which we did. And when you go to those fact-checking websites, they are saying, we update information. So why didn't they update and put my article back on my video back? Because I was completely right. So you can see that those people are paid to falsify the information. And it is shame. They even call themselves journalists.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is the world, and most people still don't realize that they're fed propaganda most of the time. I wanted to ask you one more thing, because you said at the beginning that you don't believe that Homo sapien history as an evolution history from apes, coming from apes, etc., is accurate, right? Because I had someone recently who was saying that there is official story that 200,000 years ago there was a sudden leap in the size of human brain, and this is a product of evolution and blah blah blah. And there are other theories that maybe we are some kind of hybrids genetically engineered by different races and things like that. What's your perspective on
Well, when I
us
said in
or
the
Homo
beginning
sapiens.
that what they teach us is wrong, and I mentioned origin of man, it seems that maybe a little bit longer than 200, maybe even 400,000 years back, something happened. You know, we did have Neanderthals, which at the time were the most advanced animals in our habitat. Of course, they are a little bit bigger than us. Even their brain volume was a little bit bigger. But they had all other features of very advanced animals. And then all of a sudden, you know, you have a new species which is intelligent, which is artistic, and that would be us, Cro-Magnons, Homo sapiens, sapien. Now, how is that possible? You know, if it was for the evolution, it would take at least 5 million years to go from the Neanderthal to Homo sapiens. Something happened right there. And when you analyze the DNA from the Neanderthal, but also from the ape man, from the gorillas, from chimpanzee, from all these, you know, animals, you can see that they were perfectly adjusted to the conditions of our planet. What does that mean? In their case, you know, those who were stronger, who were bigger, they would survive. If you are a big Neanderthal or a big chimpanzee, whatever, not chimpanzee, but big Neanderthal, then you would have cave for yourself. People who were weaker, male who were weaker or sicker, or, you know, they would not have a chance to, you know, find a nice girls, only these big guys, because they were the strongest guys, and they were the healthiest. What does that mean? It means that every new generation would have only 2 or 3 genetical potential problems that would develop in some sickness, you know, in your children. 2 or 3 of them. And then all of a sudden, you have Homo sapiens that even today, we have about 5,000 genetical flaws. What does that mean? Even before we are born, it is known that we're going to get some of the diseases. It can be TBC, it can be cancer, it can be Alzheimer, it can be whatever. Why is that? It obviously means that there was no evolution to Homo sapiens, but somebody mixed the genetic materials from the most advanced species at the time, Neanderthal, with genetic material from the species not of this planet, who were not accustomed to the conditions of this planet, and that's why we have those genetical flaws. So even though we are smarter than species before us, we are getting sicker because of this problem with the genetic materials. Now, the next question, and you mentioned that, why we were created, were we slave species? It is very possible. And then the research, especially in South Africa and South African gold mines, can probably give us a hint. It seems that our first purpose was to replace those other beings in gold mining, because for some reason they were using a lot of gold, and a lot of gold left our planet long time ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago. You know, I was taking groups to South Africa, Swaziland, Zimbabwe with a friend of mine, Michael Tellinger. And then we would talk a lot about those gold mines. And we know now when those big companies that explore gold today, or diamonds or whatever, they have instructions. When they discover prehistorical gold mines, deep underground, they have instructions to dynamite them and to cover them completely. So the human history obviously is not, what they teach us, is we are not product of the evolution, but it is much more interesting in the sense that there were so many influences. So the first one probably did genetic engineering, using us or abusing us, but they were not the only one. it seems that there are several other who affected our genetics, and that probably can explain different races on the planet, because there is no way that so many different races, the yellow and the black and the brown and the white and the red, so it seemed that somebody was playing, they were seeding different races for different reasons. So, in that sense, it is very complex and interesting. And also when it comes to the megalithic sites and pyramids, somebody had a technology to shape, and it is not us. If you shape granite like in Egypt or Vietnam or US or Netherlands, building hunebeds or building pyramids, in order to shape granite, today we use diamond tools. What did they use? I mean, you cannot explain that, with the primitive, soft copper tools, and they have access only to copper tools. In order to transport, let's say that obelisk in Luxor, 300 kilometers from Aswan, 450 tons. I mean, explanation by Egyptologists are so entertaining. They are saying, they built those wooden barges, they would place them. Well, when the Japanese cut 2-ton block and put it on the wooden barge, it sunk on the bottom of the Nile. 2 tons. And how to explain 220 or 475 tons? And then plus two.
Or how?
Yes.
How many blocks? Like the Egyptian pyramids. Let's say the biggest one.
The Great Pyramid consists of two. Yeah, it consists of 2.5 million blocks. So they are telling us
each one is many tons, right?
Well, they have 2 tons, 3 tons, 5 tons, 12 tons, 50 tons. In Cheops, the biggest one is 80 tons. In Khafre, 220 tons. And, they're telling us the Pharaoh, they built it during their life. Okay, you take Pharaoh Khufu, Cheops, from the 4th dynasty. He ruled according to some 19 years, according to some 23 years. So, in order to build that pyramid in 20 years, you need to install 1 block every minute. So imagine, design, cut, transport, install every minute. And you know what? Every block of the Great Pyramid of Egypt is of different size, different dimension. What we today, to make our life easy, we build a factory and we produce millions of blocks of the same size. And then, we built our little structures that collapse with the first earthquake. They had every block of different size. You know what that means? Engineers know that. Archaeologists have no clue. What is the problem with the different size blocks? First, if you want to make sure that they fit perfectly, and you got all 4 sides with the corners and edges so perfectly done, you need to test them. Where do you test them? Well, you test them in the place where you manufacture them. Where is it? In Aswan, 869 kilometers from Giza. So you need to test. And where is the testing facility? It's not there. How do you lift it? The biggest one you had to lift, 146 meters above the ground. You cannot lift it, with the ropes. I mean, that's so funny. You have to have technology. Today we use cranes. We use forklifts. That's technology. How do you lift 220 tons? So Egyptologists have no clue. Had to be some form of the levitation. Let me, just cut it to the chase. Levitation.
I mean, it's, if they had these types of advanced knowledge and technologies, we know that there is sound levitation, for example, right? So certain sound frequencies can
for sure
create a levitation effect. it is possible that these types of technologies were used.
The same people who writes Wikipedia, Encyclopedia Britannica, Smithsonian, same people who attack me, they make sure that such theories do not come about the Egyptian pyramids construction process on their websites, of course. So, this is how it goes. They like to keep people in dark. They like to keep them uninformed. And with all what they feed us with, the food and treated water and all this sodas and other stuff, with all what they do to us, spraying us, our soil, our water sources, fluorides, they keep us not only in the dark, they keep us sick. So the pharmaceutical industry can have the blast, and they keep us even sicker all our lives. So, it's very unfortunate. So it seems that everything is directed to decimate us and eventually remove us. So, one has to ask the question, so what are you going to do? I mentioned before we started talking that I was at this dialogue in Brahma Kumaris. They organized with some leaders from around the world, but normal people. And there was one thing I heard. They said, you don't attack the forces of dark, but you lit your candle. You bring the light to the world. And once you have many, many, many lights, the darkness disappears. So what we need to do, we need to become free. We need to bring our own freedom and affect people around us. Once many people throw their consciousness, that will be the way. It's not the violence. It is the rise of the consciousness. In the last 10 years, I spent all my American savings here in Bosnia, and I purchased a lot of neglected land, swampy land, muddy land, with the garbage everywhere. And I transformed it into a beautiful park, which has become the cultural oasis of the region, with the festivals, sport events. We have, tennis stadium and beach volleyball and basketball and the chess. And we have labyrinths of energy, labyrinths of love, purification, labyrinths of health. We have stages for yoga and meditation, the concerts and the book promotions and we teach people what to eat, what to drink, what to think. So we have created our oasis of freedom and serenity. So this is our way to find the answers. This is our way to offer a different concept for humanity. Instead of simply feeling helpless, because we think the governments, they have police and inspections and ministries and army, whatever. No, don't rely on governments all the time. Rely on yourself. So we have created something without a penny from the government, something that gives hope to many people who come and visit us. And I just told you, how we have this graph that shows people from 10,000, 50 to 200,000 in a few years, hopefully 500,000, and then 1 million, and so on. So many more people will be affected by the pyramid energy, but also by our side. So instead of those new Western values that they try to impose on us, transhumanism, upgraded human, GMO food, treated water, digital wallet, digital banks, fully controlled lives, face recognition. So instead of being extension of technology that will be manipulated and being sprayed, and biochip and stuff like that. They're saying, no. The future of humanity is going back to our humane aspect, going back to harmony among us people and harmony with the nature.
I agree on many of your points. Definitely, this is how I see. We don't fight fire with fire. We fight it with water. We just change ourselves, spread the light, and enough people catch up, and then they don't have anything to left because no one is listening, no one supports them. So, this is. Thank you so much for this amazing interview. I really enjoyed learning from you. And is there anything else you wanted to add before we're gonna finish?
Yes, I'd like to invite everyone to come to the Bosnian Pyramids. BosnianPyramids.ba, or look under my name, Dr. Sam Osmanagich, Insta, Facebook, YouTube, and stuff like that. I mean, there is a light around us. Many people bring, the lights. They are light bearer, and our site is one of them. Imagine 20 of similar sites in Bosnia, 50 in Serbia, 100 in Poland, 500 in the US. We will change the world. We don't need to wait for the government, because for thousands of years they've been using us and abusing us and exploiting us. We have the power to be the masters of our destiny.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And I hope I'll come to see and test, because I'm sensitive to energy. So
Good.
I'm
Come.
sure if I'm going to be there, I'm going to test it myself.
Please, come.
It's not so far. Currently in Poland, so not that far. Maybe, who knows? Maybe even this
And
year.
I think there is a direct flight from Warsaw to Sarajevo. So it's even closer than you think.
So I feel invited. We're gonna get a personal tour, right?
You let me know, and you're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sam. Thanks a lot. All right, thanks for checking another episode of Truth Theory podcast, and thank you for watching. And till next time, thank you.
All right. Bye bye.